and welcome to Rock, Paper, Shotgun, and today we're looking at People Can Fly and Square Enix's next big third-person shooter, Outriders, which is coming to PC later this year. When I played it about 5 million years ago, I quite enjoyed its time-freezing powers and its gooey headshots, but my vidbud Colm has played an updated and tweaked build of the game, and I'm keen to know what he thought of it. So I've asked him to chat to me about his thoughts on the game. So, Colm, before we started recording, you were telling me that some people have the wrong idea about Outriders. What do you mean by that?
Well, as people may know, this is a bombastic class-based co-op shooter with superpowers. But I hope our lovely and intelligent viewers can tell from my gameplay, and I will point out I was thrown in around 2.5 hours into the game, that this isn't a Gears of War clone, despite People Can Fly's knowledge of the series after the unfairly maligned judgment, in my view. This plays more like a heavier Infamous, if you remember Infamous, or Lord strike me down for saying so, Quantum Break.
Quantum Break's alright.
It's okay. Outriders doesn't have the best part of Quantum Break, which was obviously Lieutenant Daniels from The Wire.
Of course.
But it does have shootouts that don't let up until the last enemy is down. You'll get a brief moment of respite when you slam into one of the lovely waist-high walls scattered about the place, but given the aggressive nature of those that are trying to murder you, you won't be able to stay there for too long. You know, you can't just camp.
Right.
Because Outriders, it urges you to get into the faces of your enemies by, one, giving you some fairly hefty weapons, and two, and I really do like this, having you gain health through damage that you deal to the baddies. Not kill them, just damage them.
Right.
The Devastator class will gain health from close range shots. The Pyromancer will get health from shots made from long range. And I want to say the Trickster is mid-range, but honestly, I can't remember, so I won't.
Right.
It's a fairly simple yet effective aspect of the game. Like, when you're on the attack, your health increases and theirs depletes.
So you sort of mentioned some different classes there, and they're obviously defined by quite unique kind of power sets. What did you make of the powers? Do they kind of work well with that more aggressive playstyle?
Very much so. Very much so. I really do like the powers, and I feel like people need to focus on that aspect rather than thinking that this is some sort of Gears of War clone, as I said. But firstly, I must point out, I didn't get to play as all the classes.
Yeah.
People Can Fly are keeping stum about the 4th class. They haven't revealed that just yet, but they have spoken about the Devastator, which is the sort of close-range tank-like character, I believe, and the other two that I played as, which was the Trickster and the Pyromancer. The Trickster is your sort of Time Lord man. They're able to manipulate spaces around enemies, like you're able to place a bubble around nearby enemies that puts them into slow motion. They have this sweeping blue blade thing that can just magically pop out of their arm, much better than Ezio's hidden blade. And they have this 1-inch punch that just obliterates whomever is being punched. And my personal favourite, Matthew, the ability to teleport behind a target that's within range. It's glorious, just sneakily waiting behind somebody, bamboozling them moments before you mercilessly kill them in front of all their friends. It's good times. It really is.
I had memories of sort of warping in and then dropping one of those time bubbles so you can kind of basically jump into a big cluster of enemies and then start shotgunning them to pieces in slow motion, which was quite tasty.
It's marvellous. Now, I did, as I say, play as a different class, the Pyromancer, and I messed around with their abilities a little bit more. They have a fiery laser beam that they can shoot out of their hands, sort of Iron Man-esque. They can turn others into ashy statues that are vulnerable to your attacks. They're also able to charge up their weapons with volcanic rounds, and they can, my favourite with regard to Pyromancer, they can throw out this, I suppose it's a grenade type thing, that burrows under the earth, and then it shoots out from the ground and sort of attaches itself to enemies before it makes them go splat. Again, wonderful destruction.
One of the things that kind of jumped out about with all the powers is that it's way more generous with them than other games with similar powers. Like, I felt like I was throwing around my powers quite a lot as opposed to just waiting for them to cool down. Like, they were very much at the heart of what I was doing, as opposed to, say, Destiny, where A lot of the powers in Destiny, I don't use them that commonly because they're on longer cooldowns. I don't know if you sort of got a similar vibe.
The cooldowns are, I won't say non-existent, but they're very forgiving. Again, going back to the whole trying to get you to be aggressive, it's just constantly imploring you to kind of just fiddle about with this silly magic that you have. If there were harsher cooldowns, it would sort of go against the ethos of the game, really. Having you just sit behind a waist-high wall waiting for your powers to recharge. You're not able to, I don't know if you saw this, but you're not really able to spam enemies. But when you are waiting for some of your powers to recharge, albeit for a relatively short amount of time, you have your firearms before you go back to your firearms as the pyromancer. It's a little fire gag there for you, Matt.
Very good. I'll put those in words on the screen so people can see exactly what you've done there.
Thank you. So it doesn't really dangle the carrot of superpowers in front of you. Gives you the whole bag of super carrots and hummus as well on top of it.
Oh, nice. Are the guns the hummus?
I should have checked to see if they're edible guns. Sadly, I don't know. But yeah, you can eat as much and as often as you like in Outriders.
As long as you like carrots.
Yes, and hummus.
What about the RPG-ness of Outriders? I got strong Destiny vibes when I played. If you're looking at this footage, you can see that you're basically a variation of space wizards throwing around lots of different powers, and actually with the co-op, they can blend in some interesting ways, and there's some quite nice interplay between setting people up in the time bubble and then screwing people over in with the other stuff. I'm also interested in kind of what you made of the actual kind of weapons, the gear game, because it is a game about picking up guns with slightly higher numbers attached to them, right?
Yeah, it is. It is unashamedly Destiny-like. The menus with its fiddly circle cursor, the various power type ratings that go up and down depending on the gear you just mentioned, depending on what gear you have selected. The build that I played, so you mentioned that you played in co-op. I will say I was playing single player, and I think I was playing as quite a beefy superhero. So,
right.
I don't think I'll have the powers and the gear that I had there at the same point in the final game. But the gear itself, I mean, it seems all right. One thing specifically that tied into the gear and how Destiny-like Outriders is the world tier difficulty system.
Right.
So on higher tiers, you'll get, you'll face enemies of higher level that deal more damage, blah, blah, blah. Lower level, they'll be easier to get rid of. Standard stuff. But if you do opt to play on a higher tier, then you will be rewarded with it as well. So it's not just about bragging rights or some sort of weird pride that you have. You'll get better gear, better loot drops, all that. So if you do want to build this dystopic Marvel Avenger, then you will have to play on the highest level available to you. You'll gain access to new tiers the more enemies you kill, increasing this world tier bar. But the game does recognise when you're struggling too. So if you die, that bar does go down.
Right.
And when you unlock new tiers, you get epic weapons and resource packs. And
did any of the weapons sort of jump out at you? Because when I was playing it, I thought the weapons all basically handled quite nicely, in a similar way that Destiny has Bungie, who are masters of first-person weapons. People Can Fly obviously bring some of that kind of Gears experience to the table. They feel quite meaty, they feel quite chunky, but I didn't necessarily notice radical differences as I got better versions of things. Did you have anything sort of juicy to play with?
It was fairly standard stuff. There was this assault rifle that would, when you shoot, it would start off slow and then sort of build up into a really rapid fire, which is mildly interesting. There was another that shot out these frozen bullets. So shoot one at an enemy, then go up and you could melee attack them, whatever, and they'll shatter. So there are elemental features to weaponry as well.
Right.
I mean, yeah, you mentioned Gears of War. I think that is many people would say the gold standard in terms of modern, not necessarily Judgment, but just the series, is the gold standard of third-person shooters. I don't think it's quite as tight as that, but it doesn't need to be when that is just an aspect of the gameplay. You have your superpowers on top of that. I mean, when we're talking about the Destiny-ness of it, the Outriders is definitely a tad confused. It's Destiny, but it's not really Destiny. You know what I mean? And I think that is translating a little bit to the general public and their excitement surrounding the game.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, I feel like there's not a massive amount of buzz around the game. I really, really enjoyed what I played, and maybe I'm just basing this on the fact that I did a preview video and like no one watched it, which obviously made me sad, but you can, I'll link to it on screen, you can go back and watch it, and it explains some of the basics. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed it, and maybe it's just a game that comes alive in the hands, and it sounded like you had a decent time, but like, why do you think Outriders is failing to kind of connect with people? Like, it doesn't feel like it's on the top of any, must play of the year lists.
No, it's not. It's not. And I think you made a very good point. It does play better than it looks. So that could be it. And maybe there is a bit of mixed messaging in terms of people thinking that Outriders is more of a cover-based shooter. I'm not sure. I'm not fully confident that there is enough of a compelling story or an engaging mission structure to propel you through the entirety of the game. Because it differs to Destiny in that regard. Like, again, from the hour I played, it is more of a linear shooter rather than a games of service game. They've even gone on record saying that it isn't a games of service game if you look at the FAQ on the site. I personally don't have an issue with that, but if you're trying to grab the attention of Destiny players, which I feel like they are, then I'm sure Destiny players would like a reason to play after the final cutscene has played. The missions themselves, it just seemed a little bit samey.
Yeah, they're quite odd, because it definitely felt more like a straight third-person shooter. It felt quite Gearsy in that, you're going from A to B, and there are like scripted cinematic moments, and I know that there are some of those in like Destiny's main story missions, but it doesn't have that same slight kind of simplified MMO-y kind of feel to like the hubs. There are hubs, but it didn't feel like there were big open world areas, and maybe they're just showing off like the more linear early hours of the game at the moment, but I struggle to see how it wasn't just going to be a succession of like linear A to B kind of arena battles.
That's what it does seem to me. Like, I only played 2 missions, one main mission and one side quest, and they didn't really offer much more than jog over here, shoot these lads with walls of flame and time manipulation, whatever else, and then move on to the next area and do the same. Even though the powers are undoubtedly fun, I've said that, you've said that, I do hope there's some slight variation on mission structure when it comes to the final game. At this point, I am a bit torn on Outriders. It feels like it could be enjoyable, if forgettable. Fingers crossed that the final game, which is out later this year, will give you enough reason to sneakily teleport behind bastards before you slice them with your blue blade of death. But at this time, I'm not sure, Matthew. I'm relatively excited.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit more excited, but I do appreciate you kind of sharing some thoughts from Updated Build. I am interested to see how this one blossoms out, and hopefully people will stick around on the channel to see more from Outriders in the future. Thank you very much, Colm, for talking me through Outriders.
Thank you, Matthew.
As you say, hopefully the full game will end up being this sort of fun, chaotic superhero shooter that both you and I have experienced in these early builds. As always, if you are watching this and you enjoy it, please do give the video a like. If you have any questions about Outriders, do pop them in the comments. If you'd like to see more Outriders, let us know. Is it just a lack of interest in the game? I hope it's not because the videos suck. That would be terrible. That would be disastrous and really, really hurt my ego. And yes, please do come back for more videos on Rock, Paper, Shotgun. Do subscribe, hit the bell so that you don't miss any future uploads. We'll be covering all kinds of exciting stuff. We've got a really good lineup of videos planned for July, so we'll hope you stick around. And so I will say bye for now, and Colm, you may also say goodbye now.
Bye.
Goodbye.